The track program at the University of Oregon was built by the three Bills. Yesterday, I told y'all about legendary coach Bill Bowerman, whose unconventional training approaches and technical innovation transformed the Oregon track program into an absolute powerhouse. Bill Dellinger was one of Bowerman's first standout runners and then later his assistant coach. After Bowerman's retirement, Dellinger was promoted to head coach, leading the team to another 5 NCAA titles and cementing Eugene as Tracktown, USA. But before either Bowerman or Dellinger were even born, there was a third Bill, laying the groundwork for what Oregon track would eventually become. His name was Bill Hayward. Today is July 2nd, 2025, and on this day in 1868, Bill Hayward was born in Detroit, Michigan. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and you are listening to Today in Running History. So it's kind of hard to imagine Detroit in the 1860s since neither cars nor M&M were invented yet. And it turns out that before it was Motor City, Detroit was called the stove capital of the world because its top industry was manufacturing cast iron stoves. I haven't been able to find out a ton about Bill Hayward's parents other than the fact that they were both Canadian. So I like to imagine that they were part of an international cast iron empire. But whatever it was that his parents initially did for work, they decided to abandon Bill and his 4 siblings and move to Peru in 1878. They never came back. After that, the Hayward kids were raised by their grandparents in Toronto, Ontario. Most of Bill's childhood was spent competing in various athletic escapades, and he was really good. He actually became one of the fastest sprinters in all of Canada. Hayward won everything from the 75-yard dash up to the 600-yard run, earning up to $4,000 in prize money at a single track meet. And this is the 1890s, so that is the equivalent of more than $100,000 in today's money. So Hayward probably would have excelled in the Grand Slam track league. Bill Hayward had many other talents as well, like playing for the Ottawa Capitals world champion lacrosse team and touring vaudeville as a juggler with gentleman Jim Corbett. Then in 1898, Hayward left his career as an athlete and entertainer behind and became the assistant track coach, first at Princeton and then later at UC Berkeley. He then became the head track coach at Pacific University and then Albany College. And it was while coaching at Albany in 1903 that Hayward first became acquainted with the University of Oregon's track team. Hayward's Albany team beat Oregon, a team 3 times their size, and Oregon was so impressed that they immediately offered Hayward the job as their head track coach. So Hayward moved to Eugene in 1904, and his 43-year tenure at the University of Oregon began. Hayward's coaching success did not take very much time to develop. In 1906, he coached sprinter Dan Kelly to equal 2 world records at a single track meet. This type of coaching success continued, and during his time at Oregon, Hayward eventually coached 4 world record holders, 6 American record holders, and 9 Olympians. And what makes these numbers even more impressive is that these athletes competed in all sorts of events, from sprinting and hurdles, distance running, all the way to field events like discus, javelin, pole vault, high jump. Hayward coached champions across the board. And Hayward's ability to coach the entirety of track and field events earned him the role as the official U.S. track coach for every Olympic team who competed between 1912 and 1936. For the 1908 Olympics in London, Hayward had paid his own fare to accompany Dan Kelly, who I mentioned a few minutes back had recently tied a couple world records. In London, Kelly ended up missing out on the 100-meter finals, but he did win the silver medal in the long jump. And it was that Olympic silver medal that thrust his coach, Bill Hayward, onto the international stage. Hayward was soon recruited by Team USA to help them prepare for the 1912 Games in Stockholm. At the 1912 Olympics, Bill Hayward was the official U.S. track coach, and he helped guide Oregon runner Martin Hawkins to a bronze medal in the hurdles. He also helped coach Jim Thorpe, who won gold in both the pentathlon and the decathlon. Then World War I happened, and it canceled the 1916 Olympics as well as the 1917 and 1918 track seasons back at the University of Oregon. But Hayward resumed coaching duties as soon as he could, and he served again as the U.S. track and field coach at the 1920 Olympics in Antwerp. Between that first Olympics he coached in 1912 and the last one Hayward would coach in Berlin in 1936, the U.S. track and field team won a total of 153 Olympic medals. A few of those were even won by Hayward's Oregon athletes, such as Ralph Hill's silver medal in the 5,000 meters at the 1932 Olympics. Bill Bowerman met Bill Hayward in 1929 and asked him for some help in increasing his speed to become a better football player. Hayward threw Bowerman into track practice alongside Ralph Hill, who was the first world-class miler that Bowerman had ever met. It was the way that Hayward coached Ralph that inspired Bowerman's coaching methods years later. Intentional track workouts to build raw speed, separate tempo workouts to sustain that speed, and then slower long runs to increase overall endurance. In 1932, Bill Hayward invited Bowerman to come along to Los Angeles to watch Hill run the Olympic 5,000 meters. In the final stretch of that race, Hill was elbowed at the last second and ended up taking silver. Then he took the hand of the man who had elbowed and beaten him, and they jogged a victory lap together. Bowerman and Hayward spent hours after that race discussing both Hill's tactics and sportsmanship, and Bowerman's interest in the coaching side of the sport had officially begun. Bowerman graduated soon thereafter and moved back to Medford to start his own coaching career. In 1936, Hayward was once again the U.S. track coach for the Olympics. At that point, he had Jackie Robinson's older brother Mac on his team at Oregon and began preparing him for the games in Berlin. Robinson ultimately ended up winning the Olympic silver in the 200 meters, second only to Jesse Owens. The 1936 Olympics would be the last of Hayward's life. World War II canceled both the 1940 and the 1944 Olympics, and Hayward felt that they would never return. At this point, Hayward was also getting older, and so he started hiring assistants to help him with some of his coaching duties. Then, at a dual track meet in the spring of 1947 between Oregon and their rivals at Oregon State, it was announced that Bill Hayward would finally be retiring after 43 years. In his honor, the crowd gave a 5-minute standing ovation while applauding, and then Oregon won the meet 79-52. His assistant track coach, John Warren, took over for a year, but Hayward insisted that the permanent position be offered to Bill Bowerman after that. Just a few months after retiring, Bill Hayward died at the age of 79, and Bowerman took over the following spring. 3 decades later, the U.S. Track and Field Hall of Fame decided to induct Coach Bill Bowerman, who refused the honor unless they first inducted his mentor and predecessor, Bill Hayward. For one stupid reason or another, the Hall of Fame officials decided against that. They ended up inducting Bowerman anyways, and it took another 3 decades until Hayward was finally inducted in 2005. Coach Bill Hayward's most famous namesake is Hayward Field, the track and field stadium at the University of Oregon in Eugene. Since its inception, it's hosted many NCAA championships, USATF championships, many Olympic trials, and it's the site of the annual Prefontaine Classic, which is actually happening this weekend. It also hosts the finish line of the Eugene Marathon every April. For over a century, that track has produced what many call Hayward Magic. Careers have begun, records have been broken, and champions have been made at Hayward Field. I'm going to leave y'all with a quote about that enduring Hayward Magic. This is from sports commentator Bill Swangard, who many of y'all might have heard calling Faith Kipyegon's attempt at breaking 4 recently. So here's the quote. Some of the greatest moments I've ever been a part of at the stadium, I'm not sure anyone could hear what I was saying on the microphone. That's the beauty of Hayward Field. I have a role to play. The athletes have a much more important role to play, but the fans are what bring the energy and the Hayward magic. I hope that each of y'all has a chance to one day either run or spectate a race at Hayward Field and feel that magic that Bill Hayward began for yourselves. That is all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, etc. And then tune in tomorrow as we flash forward to hear about the single fastest race of the 1980s. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and this has been Today in Running History.